So this morning, my talk is embracing hope. You know, the Chinese have a curse, and the curse is, may you live in interesting times. We must be doubly cursed. Now, I really don't believe that. I am more inclined to believe like Charles Dickens. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of reason, it was the age of foolishness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. It is our perspective that how we determines how our life will unfold. If we're living in a winter of despair, then you can't see opportunities that are right in front of you. You won't even notice them. My dear parents, they had both grew up in the Depression. And when I came along, kind of late in their lives, they loved nothing more than to get together with their friends and talk about the Depression and talk about how they felt that another depression was coming on. They were living through one of the biggest economic booms this nation has ever experienced. But they could not see it. What was right in front of them, they could not see. So it's good to remind ourselves that even though we seem to be going through some worrisome times right now, that we've been through them before, and we've come through them very well. In 1968, the nation was in such turmoil that there were tanks surrounding the White House and the Capitol. About that same time, I was growing up in Macon, Georgia, and was being forced to go to the Napier Avenue Church of God. My dad was determined I should become a minister of that denomination. Little did he know he was well on his way to raising a thorough heathen. Now, the members of the Church of God, they spoke in tongues, they ran up and down the aisles, they did everything but handle snakes. And the snakes were grateful that they didn't. The snakes were happy about that. Their theology was that everything was getting worse and worse. So every week the minister would get up and he would give out examples of how the world was getting more sinful, more violent, more dangerous every week. And that it was just going to get so terrible that at some point Jesus was coming back like a thief in the night, and that when he came back, then all hell was going to break out loose. And that was going to make him happy. When that happened, that was going to make him happy. Now, what drove me almost to the edge of neurosis, to the edge, some said I went over, I don't know, but certainly got to the edge of it, was that my mother cursed like a sailor. And I was sure the whole family was headed to hell. I didn't see hope for any one of us, and I included myself in that lot. I guess I was guilt by association. Now, of all the things that was wrong with the world, the one thing that most appalled the minister, and he was a really kind of lovely guy, it wasn't the hippies, it wasn't the drugs, it wasn't free love. What appalled him most was a Broadway tune. A Broadway tune. It was from the musical Jesus Christ Superstar, and it was Mary Magdalene singing, I Don't Know How to Love Him. The poor man went apoplectic over it. I'm not even sure I know what apoplectic means, but it sounds right. He had what my aunts would call, if you criticize one of my aunts' potato salad, she would throw what was known as a hissy fit. Well, that's what this little minister was having. He was having a hissy fit. He just couldn't tolerate it. He just couldn't tolerate the idea that someone might contemplate a sexual relationship with Jesus. That was just too much for him. And now, believe it or not, the whole idea about did Christ have bodily functions? This has been a huge debate, theological debate, almost from the time of the crucifixion up to now. And people still debate it. I say, give the poor man some privacy. Give him some privacy. Yeah, we all deserve it. Now, what's odd about the song that most offended him is if you really listen to it and really pay attention, has a profound message about the nature of Christ. Because what it is Mary Magdalene is singing for the first time how she's met a man who is not treating her like a sex object. And she doesn't know how to relate to him. She's experiencing love for the first time, and it's totally confused her. So it's a wonderful message about Christ. Now, the song itself is based on the misconception that Mary Magdalene was a prostitute. Evidence is that she was not. She was the victim of jealous disciples who were jealous about her relationship with Christ, and the early church's determination to discount her teachings. And they did a great job of it. Her teaching stayed buried under the sands of Egypt for almost 2,000 years until they were finally recovered in 1945 in Egypt. And we've been studying them ever since. Her writings provide a unique perspective on Christ. She's depicted as being a thoughtful, spiritual scholar herself, having profound insights into his deeper thoughts. She's not just a follower of his, but a pivotal figure who comprehends his teaching at a deeper level, one the disciples did not get. The disciples were trying to learn his teaching from their heads. She was understanding what he was saying from her heart, and she was getting a different interpretation. Her gospel emphasizes personal knowledge over Orthodox teachings. And Christ, even in the King James, he alludes to this secret teaching that the disciples don't seem to be picking up on. That salvation comes from knowledge rather than faith alone. And this knowledge comes from our hearts and souls. We are born with it. We are born with it. We have it within. This is a God of your understanding, which we encourage you to have. One that you can experience. And you can have this understanding on your own. Now, I know most of us want to have this big revelation of God, where the angels appear or the seas part. But it's really the still small voice is how we come to our understanding. And if you want to have that, all you have to do is just contemplate on the idea of love. Think about someone or something that you have loved greater than life itself, and you're contemplating God. And it will show up more and more in your life. Now, I'm a sucker for a dog story. I heard a great one this week. This woman had a dog that was her constant companion. He went everywhere with her, and finally age took its toll, and she had to put him to sleep. The next day, she decided to try to get back into life, but she just knew she couldn't go back to the regular places she had used to go with him. So instead of going to her regular bank, she went to another bank. She goes to the bank, she pulls in, she puts her deposit into the little the machine, it goes away, it comes back, and it comes back with a dog bone. And she asks the teller, she says, "Why did you send a dog bone back?" "I don't eat them." "Why did you send a dog bone back?" The teller says, "I was sure I saw a dog when you first pulled up." This kind of stuff happens, and if we be open to it, it's not a mystery. And it's what we all come to have and to experience. Dr. Holmes says all of us can have this kind of experience, this kind of knowing, and then we can embody it to the very cell of our beings. We can become it. We're here to become love itself. And when we are in that place, we're not going to worry about the turmoil that's going on in the world. We're going to know the truth for ourselves. And we'll be able to move out into the world in calm and serenity. We will be a light unto the world. Mary Magdalene said, "Do not weep, do not grieve, don't be doubtful, for love will be with you and it will shelter you." Love will be with you, will shelter you, will guide you on, and it will allow you to become a source of healing, of blessings right where you are. Now, the spiritual journey that Mary Magdalene writes about, it's a present thing. It's not something that will happen once we die, once we go into spirit. It's a thing we work on here now. Hope is the belief that we can overcome our inner struggles and reach a state of peace and ease, of clarity. So we can come to a knowing so that the world does not bother us. And you know, one of the wonderful things about this is that you can come to a knowing, and you know, other people will try to convert you to a religion, and it won't bother you so much. It won't make you mad. I used to get so mad when the Jehovah's Witnesses will come to my doorstep. Now I let them in, and they want to do prayers. I'll tell them, sure, do it. I'm happy for anybody to do a prayer for me. You want to pray for me, please. But I always tell them, I'll hear your prayer, but then let me do a prayer for you. They don't come back. They don't come back. Yeah. So that's what we want to get. We want to get to a place where the world doesn't bother us, because sometimes, even in the worst calamities, even what we think is the worst, good pops up, and new, wonderful new possibilities to show up. Helen Keller said, although the world is full of suffering, it's also full of overcoming. I heard a near-death experience this week. This guy lives out in California, and where he lives, he has to drive over a mountain to get to work and then drive back over the mountain to get home. On the way home, he had worked too late. He got exhausted. He was coming back in the dead of night. He was coming down the mountain. A big deer walked in front of him. To miss the deer, he swerved to the left, and he had a head-on collision with a semi-trailer truck. Yeah. They took him down to this little rural hospital, little tiny rural hospital. The administrator of the rural hospital, she had noticed that they were getting lots of accidents from this highway, and she decided they needed to have a trauma unit. So she had gotten the best trauma specialists from all over the nation to come and open this trauma unit for her, and that particular night was the first night they had all gotten together. So when he came through the emergency room, there was a whole host of trauma doctors there to tend to him. Life can work this way. Life can work this way. Even when the worst of things that are happening, there are possibilities for healing and blessings. But we can't see them if we're constantly talking, going around telling people how awful things are, constantly complaining. We have to keep our eyes on the prize. We have to keep our eyes focused on the good that Spirit can rain down to us. Mary Magdalene's teaching encourages us to seek wisdom within ourselves, to remind us that we have this divine spark that connects us with the whole. You're not alone on this journey. You've got all the power and goodness of Spirit flowing through you, with you, and for you. You're not just a random entity. There is this path for you, and the path is going to lead us home. And when we know that we're on this path, when we're encouraging others, it will make the journey easier. It affirms our inherent worth, and it gives us potential for greater growth. Now, this is vastly different. This is totally different from the teachings of Paul that have dominated Christianity for 2,000 years. An interesting thing to know about the difference between Mary and Paul. Mary Magdalene had a close personal relationship with Christ. Paul only had visions of him. And Mary Magdalene and Christ himself said we can all have this revelation. We all can come to it. But Paul had the revelation himself, and then he shut it down for everybody else. He said, I'm the only one that has this knowledge. And so for 2,000 years, a lot of the Christian church has been focused on what he revealed about Christ. And the thing about Paul is that he excluded everybody else. And his model, salvation is achieved through faith in Jesus Christ as the Son of God. And salvation is a gift from God, not earned by works. The crucifixion is an atonement for humanity's sin. The Gospels really don't focus on the crucifixion. They don't focus on the sufferings of Christ. So there's less guilt and shame. Paul's version of salvation comes through Christ's sacrifice. Believers are redeemed from sin and death in faith alone. Now, the problem with that is that faith, that leaves the door open for fear, especially since you've got eternal damnation waiting for you. It opens the door for fear, and that fear simmers into a nice little vial of anger. That's what we see in our nation right now. People angry. What are they angry about? They're angry somebody has something that they deserve, or somebody's going to take something from them. And to alleviate all that anger and that pressure and that fear, you look for people who you think are doing worse. It also makes for a wonderful way to control people and a wonderful way to fundraise. It's interesting. It's interesting. You teach to inspire people to believe in the best of themselves, and you can barely cover expenses. You tell people that they're worthless worms, and you can build cathedrals. That was an editorial comment by the management. I'll get back to the regular program now. Mary focused on spiritual insight and liberation through inner knowledge, to discover the divine spark within. You have a divine spark within, and no one can take it from you. You can dim it down, you can try to discount it, but you cannot extinguish it. And it is yours to bring forth. Christ says in the Gospels, when you bring it forth, you're going to illuminate the world. And by emphasizing this inner journey, we can overcome fear with our pursuit of wisdom. The Gospels invite us to find hope within ourselves, that we're not here to suffer alone, that we can experience God's love here and now in this moment. So now's the time for us to shake off our shackles of fear and victimhood and to step up and step out in the glory of God, because it's what you've come to do. You are here to be a channel of God's love and compassion right where you are. We're not some knuckleheads in need of a good hard lesson. We're the hope and inspiration of God Almighty in the physical plane. And we're here to do great good, to prove to ourselves that we're bright, shining lights of possibility, to encourage each other, and to do it through love. Dr. Martin Luther King in the 60s in the South. You think about a turbulent time. You imagine here even in St. Augustine, how much violence and anger there was happening here in this beautiful city. But Dr. King says, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. And it is the love of God. And that's what we're here to be and to do, to be disciples of God's love where we are, to know that we are one with God. Mary Magdalene said, we're all born. All that is born and all is created as elements of nature are interwoven and are united with each other. We are woven into God's tapestry of love and compassion. There is this light within us, and we can bring it out to illuminate the world. And dear ones, the world needs as much illumination as we can give it right now. We have not come here to be judged. We're not here to be victims. We're here to be lights of God's love and compassion, to make the world a better place for our having been in it, and we can do it. Spirit has faith in you. It called you by name from stardust so you can walk the soil of St. Augustine. It has never been upset or discouraged by you for one moment. It has always been more inspired by your possibilities than any of the mistakes you've ever made. So know who you are and whose you are. You're a child of the Most High, and you've come to do wonderful and great and good work. And Spirit is so in love with you. It is preparing a place before you so it can rain down blessings and love, compassion and health and prosperity. So it can awe you with how much you're loved. This is the truth in your life this morning. It's the truth in mine, and so it is. Thank you. Thank you.